Hey, fifth grade, I hope you guys are doing well. Here are our notes for the nervous system. I did want to say you guys did very, very well in the muscular system. I was very impressed. I'm sorry that I don't get to teach these things in person. They're a lot of fun to learn about, but we're going to make do with the best we can. So here's our notes for the nervous system. All right, so many of you guys know about the nervous system. A lot of you guys are going to know already, but just to talk about it briefly, the nervous system is made up of your brain and your spinal cord, and your brain is going to is going to communicate all over your body. All right, and it's really just the main organ that's in that brain and spinal cord are those main organs. All right. So here are your three, all right, here are your three vocabulary words. This is numbers 1, 2, and 3. Also, sorry, have out your notes for the PowerPoint to follow along as we do this together. So the nervous system is defined as the system that receives information from your environment and controls how you react. All right, so the information you are going to get from the environment, your sight, your hearing, your smell, your taste, your touch, all of those senses, which is why I had you do that lab to start, because that's what your nervous system does for you. It allows you to perceive and understand what's going on all around you. All right, so your central nervous system is the part that consists of the brain and spinal cords, and the peripheral nervous system consists mainly of nerves and connects to the central nervous system to every other part of the body. So your central nervous system is going to consist of the brain and spinal cord. That should say spinal cord, not cords. Sorry, you only have one spinal cord. All right, and it's going to help you move and understand what's all around you. All right, so here's a breakdown of the nervous system. You can pause this so you can read this a little bit. It's also in your notes. So the job of the central nervous system, that includes the brain and spinal cord, the job is its job is to receive the information, decide what to do with it, and give the orders to the muscles or glands to act. All right, so it's the one that tells the muscles or sweat glands or things, your fingers, your toes, your hips, your nose, whatever, to move. And your peripheral nervous system is going to be the one that is all those nerves and the nerve ending outside of the cerebral nervous system that come off the spinal cord in the brain, and that brings the messages in and out of the central nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system is the one that kind of like directs and helps move things throughout the body. The central is the one that really perceives and understands. So you can see the central nervous system is that centralized part of your body, and the peripheral is all those extraneous things, almost like that axillary and appendicular skeleton like we talked about too. All right, so neurons. All right, so neurons are found in both the brain and spinal cord. All right, the neurons pass messages throughout your body, and it's made of three parts: the cell body, the axon, and then one or more dendrites. All right, so the neurons are going to be how your brain kind of communicates. All right, so you're going to hear neurons, the word neurons, a lot. So make sure you know that word. All right, so here are parts of the neuron. They are the cell body, the dendrite, and the axon, as previously mentioned. The cell body is the main part of the neuron. The dendrites receive messages from other neurons, so they're the ones that receive the messages. And then the axon sends the message from cell body to other neurons. All right, so the dendrites receive, the cell body takes it, the axon sends it out. Okay, so it's a pretty simple system. Well, it's a lot more complicated than that, but we're going to make it just that simple. All right, so you have tons and tons of neurons that are firing in your brain, trillions and trillions of them that are firing in your brain all the time and telling you what's going on, what you're hearing, all right, what you're seeing, what you're smelling, what you're tasting, what you're touching. All those things are going on in your neurons in your brain. So there's just another picture of that. All right, so here's the super exciting part about the brain. We're going to talk about the parts of the brain. So we just finished, that was the physiology of the brain, kind of the function of the brain. And then this is going to show you the anatomy and more physiology about those specific parts. So here's one of my favorite parts of the brain. And we're really going to get into this next week. We're going to do a little activity for you guys. All right. But the cerebrum, all right, it's split into two halves, left and right cerebrum. So the brain has two halves. All right, each half is responsible for specific things. So the left brain, all right, your left brain, so it's actually flipped on here. This is like if we're looking at a brain. But if you are a left brain dominant person, you're good at logic, you're decisive, you're accurate, you're analytic, you like numbers, you like science, you're realistic, you're logical, you're strategic, practical, all those things, like the facts, the hard facts, things like that. It just makes sense for you to be realistic about things. You can attack problems, word problems. You're good at those kinds of critical thinking skills. If you are more right brain dominant, that means you're better at poetry and art and music, and you're passionate and you're creative, you like to draw, you like to color, you like to paint. You have, all those kinds of more um, artistic types of practices. Now, most people are not just left brain, just right brain, or else you'd be a very tricky person. All right, most people are a good mix in between. But if you take a test, which we are going to take a little left brain, right brain test next week, and turn it into a little fun activity, you're going to actually figure out if you're more dominant left or right brain. Most of us favor one of those two. Like you prefer um, you know, art and music over something like math, or something, or things like that. Or you would prefer to creatively write over doing something in science. But see, you guys are all science brain because you all love science so much. So science is everything though. And you can see that, science can actually mix in between right and left. Science actually accesses both of those, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's talk about the parts of our brain. So you have your frontal lobe, which guess what? Frontalis, if you remember that. Your frontalis was those forehead muscles. Your parietal lobe, your occipital lobe, or occipitalis is the back of your head. Your temporal lobe, which is on the side, or where your temples are. Your cerebellum, and your brain stem. All right, so you're going to get to know these very well. So the brain stem, which is located down here, that controls the flow of messages between the brain and the rest of the body. You have your breathing, your swallowing, your heart rate, blood pressure, and whether you are awake or sleeping. So a lot of your kind of involuntary stuff, breathing, swallowing, heart rate, blood pressure, your brain stem is controlling that message and controlling those flow of that information to the rest of your body. Your cerebellum, which sits at the bottom part of your brain, that controls voluntary movements. That's posture, balance, coordination, and speech. So sit up straight, maintaining balance, coordination, dexterity, speech, talking, things like that. That all comes from your cerebellum. Your temporal lobe, which is on the side, that's involved in primary auditory perception or hearing. So, if you ever you hear a loud noise or something and you say, "Ouch, my primary auditory perception is hurting," that's just your hearing. All right, so that's a fancy way of saying that, and it makes sense. It's the temporal lobe is right near your ears. All right, your frontal lobe, that's your emotional expression, your problem solving, memory, language, and just judgment. Control panel of our personality and ability to communicate. All right. So this is a fun little fact about your brains. Your brains actually develop back to front. All right, so everyone's brain developed back to front. So your frontal lobe is one of the last things to develop, which conveniently, all right, is one of these major things is judgment. All right, so when we've talked about this before, you see a brick laying on the ground and you're like, I should throw that brick through that glass window, and you do it. When you're young, you can kind of be like, oh, I didn't really think about the consequences. And sometimes you don't think about the consequences because you haven't developed enough to think about the consequences yet. All right. That's not an excuse to do whatever you want. That's just saying you can just say my frontal lobe is not yet developed. So the frontal lobe, though, controls our personality and ability to communicate. It helps us express things emotionally. It's our memory, language, judgment, things like that. So it's pretty unique. I like that part of the brain. So the parietal lobe is that center part right here, this purple. That's the primary sensory information. So that's your taste, temperature, touch. Tells your body where you are, communicates your surroundings. All right. Your taste, temperature, and touch. What do things taste like? How hot or how cold something is? What does something feel like? And it just gives your body information about, hey, where am I in time and space? What's going on? And then finally, your occipital lobe is responsible for vision. That's why if you get hit in the back of the head, like say you're playing soccer and you get kicked in the back of the head with a soccer ball, your vision can go a little fuzzy and wonky. That's because your occipital lobe is directly tied and coordinates with your eyes. All right, and it allows your vision to work. So your corpus callosum is in the center. That's what connects the two cerebrum, or the hemispheres of the brain, allows them to communicate to one another. It's like that bridge. All right. And then there's one more part of the brain, which I like a lot. All right. We're on number 25. This is the bonus round. You guys all love super scary science words, so I thought I'd give you a new one to throw around. There are many more parts of the brain, and the brain is a highly complex thing. Scientists are learning new things about the brain every day. Okay. Scientists are learning. I mean, neuroscience is a huge field to study. There's psychology, there's sociology. There's psychology is how, the study of how the brain works and how internally it kind of works, and, thoughts and behaviors and things like that. Sociology is the study of society, how humans interact with each other. You can study neuroscience. That's, you could perform surgery on a brain. I had a friend whose parent was a neurosurgeon at Children's. He would perform brain surgery on little infant babies. Talk about pressure. So lots of things that you guys could study in the future. I wish we could dedicate an entire year to studying on the brain. But there are many more parts, but you are all so smart that I figured I would share one more with you. So behold the glory of the medulla oblongata. All right, this forms the lowest part of the brain stem. All right, and it's just the control center for the heart and the lungs. So the medulla oblongata. All right, so that's our brain. So the last thing we're going to talk about very briefly is the voluntary nervous system movements versus involuntary. So voluntary nervous system movements are under conscious control. So if I say raise your right hand, all right, you could just do that right now. All right, you're not just gonna be sitting there and all of a sudden, whoa, my left hand is raising up. No, typically your left hand would raise up if you tell it to. But involuntary happens when you're not thinking about it. And this happens, we talked about that with your muscles. We talked about that with your heart. Your heart is an involuntary muscle. All right, and you're going to be your heart beating, you're blinking, you're breathing, swallowing, and things like that. All right, so then if we were in the classroom, I'd have you come up and write some examples, but you can do that on your own time. And your NERB time, y'all. All right, so make sure you click on this link whenever you download the PowerPoint, and you can learn with NERB. All right, and thank you so much for watching. There's going to be some more videos posted. Stay tuned to more activities involving the brain. Goodbye.